Good morning, everybody. This is Cassie Stumo. I am the marketing specialist here at EAC. We'll start off today with an introduction of EAC and then PTC's application engineer and technical account specialist, Paul Dye, will be presenting to us on how you can create high quality photorealistic CAD images with Creo Render Studio. Everyone gets a recording of the session pending any technical difficulties. Please feel free to ask questions along the way and we'll answer them after the presentation. There's also going to be a short survey that appears once the webinar is over, so please just take a moment to answer those questions. All right, first off, I'll tell you a little bit about who we are. At EAC, our mission is to transform the way companies design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. We're not only a value-added reseller for PTC, but we are the #1 solutions provider for PTC in the country with experts in 22 areas of product development. And we're located all over the US with our headquarters in Burnsville, Minnesota. We offer our customers everything they need for product development, from CAD and simulation software for the full product design process with Creo and ANSYS. Software for managing service documentation such as ArborText, Vuforia Studio, and Creo Illustrate, and software for managing product data management such as Windchill, ThingWorx Navigate, and our EAC productivity apps. We assist with design and engineering projects like FEA, simulation, reverse engineering, and proof of concepts for our customers. And we offer webinars and PTC certified training courses for continuous learning. We also implement the industrial Internet of Things and augmented reality into business strategies to jumpstart initiatives around digital transformation and connecting all things in your company. We are also a commercial reseller for Formlabs, offering the Form 3 desktop SLA printer, which is available for as low as $34.99. So really, EAC is just the company you need to partner with to get all of the technology you need at the forefront to make your team successful so you can continue doing the things that you do best. I'll go ahead and hand things over to Paul so he can get started.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, my name is Paul Dye, and I'm with PTC. And today we'll be talking a bit about Creo's Render Studio extension. So at the end of the demo, you can just drop any questions and try to get you those answers. And if there's anything we can't answer for you on the line, and look those up after the call and reach out and get that information for you. So before we really dive in too deep into talking about the extension and tool itself, I do want to take a step back and look at some of the challenges that we see out in the industry today, and maybe even some of the stuff that you might be seeing in your processes. So as engineers, once we've designed a part or assembly that we're happy with, we want to be able to share off a high quality image of our model. This can be for a multitude of reasons, from being able to better visualize something that you've been working on for a design review, or maybe to evaluate a design to see if it's worth moving forward with in the design process. And throughout that design process, we need to be able to rapidly create and communicate our concepts and ideas around these different products. Because the more time that we spend stuck in development, that means the less time that we can actually spend working on new designs. And in the market, we not only need to get to market quickly, but we need a way to differentiate ourselves from different competition. Because for instance, if two products do the same thing, but one looks better, well, which one do you think the customers can end up going with? And we also want to be able to have and conduct product reviews, possibly before the product even gets close to going out to market. And we want to also avoid the high costs around creating prototypes. So spending the time and spending the money to get one prototype in order to see how it might look is probably something we'd like to try to avoid a little bit more of in the future. And the way that we're looking to do that and avoid or combat many of these challenges is with Creo's Render Studio tool. So this tool allows us to create fast, accurate, and high quality rendered images to be used in many different applications, including product reviews, valuations, and marketing and sales. So the first ability that we have is an advanced library of appearances that we can work with. So in base Creo, We have some standard appearances that we can work with, but with the Render Studio, we've really enhanced this, including plastics and metals, glass, wood, many more around this. They're all very easy to work with and apply these different appearances. And whenever we apply appearances, our models are going to update real time with that. So as we make changes and change the views, we change appearances, the model that's right on the screen changes along right with it. We also have access to render scenes and customizable environments using high dynamic range images, or HDRI. So within Render Studio, we want to include some out-of-the-box scenes that you can use, or you can actually use an online library for these types of images. You could also have, if you have the equipment, actually create those images yourself and simply upload them into Render Studio to use. And once we have the scene, we can begin making edits to things like the background, rotation of the scene, lighting, adding in shadows, and much more. Mentioning on the lighting, with Render Studio, we actually utilize ray tracing real time in the previews of our setup. So using our light sources, we can see how different objects in our environment bounce light off of one another. We can also utilize presets in our environments to quickly use a setup that we like and simply adjust to the current setup that we have. Also around shadows, we have shadows that can be cast onto the model itself, onto the interior of the model, illumination of certain areas that you define, and then caustics for those reflective and refractive surfaces, and maybe a bit of how they interact with their surroundings. And as we do with all of our products, we've worked to integrate these capabilities in with our parametric capabilities as well. So we can very quickly make modifications in Creo Parametric to try out some new ideas, and then jump right back into Render Studio. Render Studio also integrates very well with our design exploration tool. And that is our extension for exploring different design options to your heart's content, but also keeping track of everything that you've done in a clean and robust environment. Once you've gone through all these different iterations in the design exploration session, you can save that off to one single file, which makes it very useful for reviewing the design later on, or maybe simply if you need to reference back to one of your design iterations. And in our latest release of Creo 6.0, Render Studio now has support for emissive appearances. So what that means is if we have an object that's emitting light, and we can see how that looks and also how it interacts with itself and the surroundings. Now we can take a component or a surface and build out some very cool, very realistic renders using the emissive lighting. Same thing with the animations here. So with Render Studio, you have the option to take your animations and render them. So take whatever you've built, control the quality, sample sizes, and make these animations look very clean and very professional. All right, what I'd like to do now is take us through a workflow working within Creo and see how the Render Studio extension works there. All right. So what we're going to be working with here is a Polaris snowmobile dataset. So right here we can see that we're working in a design exploration session with all those different iterations, and the current one that we're looking at is a blue chrome design. On the left we have that checkpoint tree where we can see we have different aesthetic choices laid out in each branch. So I can simply click to activate on any of those design iterations, and we can see that the model updates to show this. And we can stick with that yellow body or switch to our red body design with that black and white front. Okay, here I'd like to next utilize our appearances tab where we can pick and choose between different color and material options. In my case, I'd like to give this front windscreen a glass appearance, so we can just simply use the brush and click on that part of the model and it updates. We have many different options around the colors and materials that we can apply to our models, and we can really dive deep into this. Again, once you've picked the appearance that you like, all you have to do is click on the paintbrush and go to the parts that you want to modify, maybe all these different parts of the model that you want to change, and you're going to be good to go. And you could always go back in after the fact and make any kind of edits to the appearance that you may need to. And you can get really very detailed here, maybe defining a specific RGB value that you want to use for your part, or something like a palette wheel to really make sure that you're getting the exact color that you want. And once I'm happy with the changes I've made, I can simply save that off as another checkpoint in our design tree, detailing exactly what changes I've made. Okay, moving on with editing our appearances, we have other options to edit our colors, including the ability to derive colors from the model to reuse or change them. So for example, we could take that tool and select the part that we want to pull from our model and utilize that color going forward. All right, we can also very quickly make edits to our model by simply clicking on the body that we're concerned with and making changes to the material that we provided, and make changes to the color, even the glossiness of the model. Whatever you want to change there, you can. We can also save some time by copying and pasting appearances from part to part. So very useful there. So we can see we can pull maybe an appearance from the back of the snowmobile and apply that to the underbelly. Okay. So now that I've gone through and made those modifications, now I want to save that off into a checkpoint before we keep moving along with our design. All right, so we've made some good changes here, and now I want to view this in a photorealistic environment. That's exactly what we're going to do with the Render Studio tool. So it's just a button that we select up at the top of the command ribbon, and we can see that it starts off a bit grainy whenever it enters in because it's rendering this image real time right within Creo. So as we move the model around, it starts off maybe grainy, and then it begins to build out that more refined, more photorealistic image as it starts to settle out. Right, and what we can do now is go over into our scenes to lay out the background for this image. So we go in and select the HDRI image that we want to utilize. This can either be selected from some of our out-of-the-box options or one that we want to bring in. In this case, I have a nice image of a snow-top mountain that we're going to be using. Okay, and once we have this image in, we have many options to view this. So including the proper orientation for that image, how far it's zoomed in, changing the rotation, saturation, many options around that. And changing all these properties to truly make it seem like our snowmobile is on top of this mountain. So let's go through here and change some of these values to really get that orientation looking lifelike. All right, and once that background is laid out how we want, we can lay out if we want any shadows or reflections around the model, and then we can start to define exactly how we want to set up the lighting for our scene. We can have multiple lighting sources set up at multiple distances and move these around to edit the scene to how we want it to look. And these lighting locations will affect things like the ray tracing and the shadows that we see down here on the model itself. Another option we have is being able to specify the exact direction and focal point of our lighting sources. So we can move this around and really get the exact effect that we're looking for. Okay. So now that we've gone through and set up our lighting sources, shadows, along with some things about the background, let's look into some of the real-time rendering settings that we have available to us. Right, so the first thing that we have is ray bounces that we have at the top. So that tells us how much reflection of the light that we're going to have coming from the ground itself. So we'll turn on that ground illumination and see what that looks like. And then the next thing that we have is our indirect bounces. So this is very useful for indirectly lit areas. So anywhere that we have in any enclosed or corner areas, we can really see a difference with this setting. And we have options around the shadow quality, just really changing the sharpness of that shadow that we're seeing. All right, and then again, some other parameters that we can go through, maybe around the ground and global illumination like we saw. It's really giving you the ability to define exactly the level of detail that you want to get down to, making our render look as close to real life as possible. Again, at any point throughout this entire process, we're able to go through and actually make changes to the model itself. And then as soon as we make changes, then our render scene is going to update to show those modifications. So go ahead, make whatever color changes that you want, make whatever material edits, and the Render Studio is going to take care of the rest. So we can see as soon as I make any color changes, the model updates to reflect this. Once we're done, we're able to take whatever screenshots of this render and share those off wherever they need to go. And that's it with that workflow. We can simply move right along with our model and then jump right back into Creo Parametric to keep on designing. Okay, now that we've seen what that looks like in the process of working with it in Creo, you can see how we can really move forward with the Render Studio. And first of all, we're reducing our time to market. This is because we can cut out time waiting to get maybe through the prototype phase to see what a product will look like. Because now we can use Render Studio to create and share off our designs, really speeding up that development time. And that in turn is lowering the costs around the product development as a whole, because it's very costly to create and evaluate things like physical prototypes. So let's do part of that with our photorealistic rendered images. Using this tool and process, we're able to make much more informed decisions around our designs. This leads to products with big improvements to things like styling, along with general consumer appeal. And that's the main goal here. We want to create products that look better and sell better. And this all comes from increasing our competitive differentiation through the use of Render Studio. So that's all I have to go over for our talk around the Render Studio, and I will pass it back over to Cassie to wrap up.
All right, thanks so much, Paul. I don't see any questions in the queue, but I will be sending the recording of the session in a follow-up email this afternoon in case you'd like to rewatch anything or send the replay to your coworkers. We are showing this last slide too because we do have this promotion going on right now, MathCAD and Creo. When you commit to a 2-year subscription, you get, if you buy one, you get the second one half off. So